Okay, so this is our second video for Hatshepsut, and in this video we're going to have a look at Egypt's neighbours because they're very important in understanding the local context for Hatshepsut as she came to power and as she ruled in her time period. So it might seem a little bit weird, but we're first of all going to have a look at a goddess and a concept before we move into looking at the neighbours in particular. And that goddess is called Ma'at. And you can see an image of Ma'at here. She is a female goddess, and we can identify Ma'at by the fact that she's wearing this feather in her headdress. And sometimes Ma'at is also represented by the feather itself and without the goddess attached. Ma'at is a goddess, but it's also a concept, and it can be loosely described as cosmic order. And it was really important for the Egyptians during this time period, in the New Kingdom period, to maintain cosmic order, to maintain Ma'at. And it was the pharaoh, the king's responsibility to do this through religious practices. And so that extended, the reason we're talking about this is because it extends into relationships with the neighbours, because Ma'at, in terms of maintaining Ma'at, the king would be required to conduct trading expeditions to make Egypt more wealthy, because that's maintaining cosmic order and making Egypt a better country and more wealthy. Ma'at would be also ensuring that Egypt wasn't attacked by foreign invaders from neighbouring countries or neighbouring areas. So that's another example of how Ma'at's important in this time period. It would also be an expectation, if the king was upholding Ma'at, to go into foreign lands and subdue them and to punish those who were rebelling against Egypt's influence. So that's why we're talking about Ma'at, and it's something that's very important in this time period and something you'll hear a lot more the further we go with this content. In terms of contact with the neighbours, there are really four reasons why the Egyptians did this. The first was to trade with them. They wanted to obviously go and get goods that didn't exist in Egypt and trade them for goods that they did have. And then therefore improve the wealth of Egypt and the lives of the people living there. Mining to get precious stones and other metals. Expedition for slaves and stock, so cattle and also human slaves to work for the Egyptians, and also to conduct military campaigns, either to punitive campaigns to punish people who are rebelling against the Egyptian influence, or to take more land to build the empire, so to speak. So here's a map of Egypt, and we'll have a bit of a look at where the neighbours are coming from. So the first here are the northern lands, that were called the Mitanni. And we see they're to the north of the Euphrates River. And there were a few expeditions that were sent out to the Mitanni during the New Kingdom period, but it was quite a long way to the north, so not many expeditions were sent there during this time period. Again, we see Syria is another important area. We see some expeditions were also sent against the Syrians during this time period, and they were constantly changing allegiance during this time period. So one minute they were loyal to one group, and another minute they were loyal to another group. So they're very difficult to maintain relationships with. Palestine, again, another area that we think this is where the Hyksos came from. The Hyksos were the people that had controlled Egypt up until the 18th dynasty. So they were a foreign force that had come into Egypt and taken control, and they were expelled, which is what marks the start of the 18th dynasty and in fact the New Kingdom period. So with the expulsion of the Hyksos, that led to increased periods of expansion into Palestine to try and control and subdue those people and control that land. And together, Syria and Palestine, these people, the Egyptians referred to as retinue. Sinai was another important area here, just this little small peninsula down the bottom here, mainly as a route from Egypt through to Palestine, but also for mining. And we also have Libya over there to the west, which some expeditions were sent there mainly to subdue sort of unruly populations. That was the main reason for it. And the southern lands, far down to the south, mainly the relationships with the southern lands were mainly for trade purposes. So there's a little bit of an overview of Egypt's neighbours and relationships with them.